Language is God's special gift to mankind. In absence of language, human civilization would have remained an impossibility because language is present everywhere. Besides being a means of communication and storehouse of knowledge, it is an instrument of thinking as well as source of delight. So, in this regard, today's video will aim at knowing what is a language, characteristics of language, and features of language. Many philosophers, logicians, psychologists, literary critics, creative writers, linguistics, and many others have been interested in language and have defined it from the point of view of their own discipline. Yet, there is no comprehensive definition of language. Since language is studied under the branch of knowledge known as linguistics, we must try to know what language is. We can roughly define language as organized noise used in actual social situations. This means language is well structured. For example, every word has a sound. Then, there are grammatical rules for the usage of language. And depending upon a particular situation, language and its tone differ. Keeping all this at the back of our mind, we arrive at language being an organized noise, which is not like animals who use sounds in unorganized way, in the form of murmuring, yelling, shouting, etc. And the second rough definition can be, language is a system of communication in speech and writing used by people of a particular region. This means language acts as a medium to be in contact with other human beings. And if whether they are, for example, talking on phone, that is speech, or chatting on WhatsApp, that is writing, language is the means through which they are communicating. Therefore, we can say that language is the system of sounds and writing by which human beings express their thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Now there are n number of definitions about language, but I will discuss only 3 of them. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, it defines language as a system of conventional spoken or written symbols by means of which human beings as members of social group and as participants in its culture communicate. In short, they want to say that language is used for communication. Next, Henry Sweet. He says that language is the expression of ideas by means of speech sounds combined into words. This means that our emotions are expressed in sound, and sounds get combined or mixed to form a word. Words can be further combined to form sentences, and further a language is developed. And according to Aristotle, speech is the representation of the experience of the mind. By this he means, whatever speech an individual conveys is nothing but his own thoughts at the back of his mind. And here are some other definitions as well. If you wish, you can jot it down. Next, we are going to see characteristics of language. First, language is arbitrary. This means there is no essential connection between the spoken word and its meaning. For example, dog in English language is called kutta in Hindi. However, the image of the dog is the same in both the languages. According to a Swiss linguist and structuralist, Ferdinand de Saussure, every word or sign is made up of a signifier and signified, and the relation between them is arbitrary. I have already explained this concept of the arbitrary nature of signs. Please watch this video to get a better understanding of this concept, and the link is provided in the description below. Next, language is a system of signs. Communication is possible due to symbols that function according to rules and convention. And every language has a system of a predefined sets of rules. For example, English as a language has many grammatical rules by which it functions. It is these rules that give us the underlying conventions on how to form phonemes into morphemes. The third characteristic is language is living. This means humans are the one who are using and shaping their language continuously. And as we know that the world is formed out of languages. Therefore, languages live as humans speak them each time. Next characteristic is language carries culture and culture carries language. Now, for example, the regional languages like Bengali, Gujarati, Odia, Marathi, etc. have distinct words that carry the culture of the states. So, the meaning of a particular language represents the culture of a particular social group. As culture is formed out of various ideologies, ideas, practices of societies, it contributes to shape language. And similarly, culture is shaped by language too. Therefore, they both share an intertwining relationship. Fifth characteristic is language is a social phenomena. Now, we know language is used for communication in a community. And here only it gets clear that it is a possession of a social group. Means language exists in society and develops and nourishes culture and establishes human relations. Therefore, we can call it as a social phenomena. Next is language is a human entity. Means no species other than human beings have been endowed with language. No animal has such a developed brain and articulatory organ as human being. They cannot acquire the complex structure of human language, and hence it is labeled as human entity. Next is duality of language. In this regard, language is organized at two levels or layers simultaneously, which is termed as duality. For example, the word bin is formed by combining three speech sounds, that is B, I and N. Whereas from the same sound units, we are able to form meaningful words like nib. In this way, at one level we have distinct sound and at another level we have distinct meaning. This duality of levels enables us to produce a large number of sound combinations within a limited use of distinct sounds. Now here, let's see some functions of language. First, means of communication, which simply means that language is used to communicate between two people. Then, means of knowledge diffusion, means language is used to diffuse knowledge or to enhance knowledge of some other person or to share knowledge. And this all happens because of language. Therefore, language is means of diffusion of knowledge. Next is means of socialization. Means it is only through language we share our thoughts, emotions, and ideas with other human beings. And then, transmission of culture. Transmission of culture usually takes through language. Language forms the base to communicate the message of a culture to larger social groups, and as well to pass out norms, ethics, and values from one generation to another generation. Then language is a means to communicate people. This can be understood, for example, let's take two people are traveling in a bus, and for any of the reason there is a small communication held between them. So, this is nothing but they are using language to express their emotions and feelings, and hence this can be named as to unite people through language. Next is language as a means of cultural identity. For example, if your friend is speaking in Gujarati in front of you and you don't know anything about it, so naturally this becomes that cultural identity is reflected through language. And language represents the culture it carries from a particular region. Now, some basic language skills. The first and foremost is listening. Now, before we learn any language, listening is the most essential point. There are advices given to us to see English movies so that our English is improved by listening to the dialogues in the movie. And listening can be from TV, radio, FM, etc. Now, after we are well versed in listening skill, we come to the speaking skill, in which it is advised that gradual speaking habit of the learning language is to be performed. And then comes the reading, which is nothing but reading of the language which is symbolically written down. And then comes writing. Writing is representation of speaking language into the printed form. And in this way, LSRW means listening, speaking, reading and writing is completed before we learn a language. So, that is it for this video. If you like my video and wish to support me, then please like and share. Thank you for listening.